The Riverside Oaks community had been my sanctuary for nearly 15 years. I purchased the modest waterfront property after a decade working as a professional lifeguard and water safety instructor at national parks across the country. The river that curved around our development offered both beauty and danger, a perfect balance that only someone with my background could truly appreciate. The water called to me, but I respected its power, especially knowing what lurked beneath the surface. My daughter Lily came into my life 9 years ago, adopted after her biological parents perished in a boating accident on this very river. Perhaps that was why I felt such a connection to her. We both understood loss and respect for the water. Lily had been born with spinal muscular atrophy, a condition that progressively weakened her muscles and required her to use a wheelchair. Despite her physical limitations, she possessed a fierce independence and a love for nature that matched my own. Our home became a carefully designed haven for her. I installed ramps, widened doorways, and created accessible spaces throughout our property. The back deck offered a perfect viewing platform, close enough to observe the river and its wildlife, but elevated and protected from danger. Each morning, Lily would sit there, counting the turtles and watching for the occasional crocodile that sunned itself on the opposite bank. The trouble began 3 months after Patricia Westfield, Karen, as the neighborhood kids called her behind her back, was elected president of our homeowners association. I first encountered her during my morning jog. She stood on my property, measuring tape in hand, scrutinizing the width of my front garden path. No greeting, no introduction, just immediate disapproval. "This pathway exceeds the allowed width by 2 inches," she declared, not looking up from her clipboard. Her blonde hair was pulled back so tightly it seemed to stretch her facial features. "The HOA guidelines clearly state all garden paths must be exactly 36 inches wide. You will need to correct this violation within 7 days." I stopped, wiping sweat from my forehead. That path was installed specifically for my daughter's wheelchair. The previous HOA board approved it 5 years ago. Patricia, Karen, looked up, her eyes cold and evaluating. "Previous approvals are under review. You will receive official notice by mail." She turned sharply and marched to the next house, her clipboard at the ready. That evening, I explained the situation to Lily as gently as possible. At 8 years old, she understood more than most children, but I tried to shield her from adult concerns. She listened carefully, her wide blue eyes serious behind her glasses. "Will I still be able to use my path to see my flowers?" she asked quietly. "Of course you will," I assured her. "This is just a misunderstanding." 3 days later, the first official violation notice arrived, not only for the path but for 5 additional infractions: unapproved deck railings, excessive bird feeders, unauthorized garden boxes, non-compliant mailbox height, and most absurdly, unsightly medical equipment visible from street view. The medical equipment in question was Lily's customized wheelchair lift near our front steps. As I read through the violations, a chill ran through me that had nothing to do with the evening breeze from the river. Through our back window, I could see the dark shapes moving in the water, crocodiles beginning their evening hunt. There was something familiar in their patient, calculated movements that reminded me of the look in Karen's eyes. Both predators, I realized, but one was bound by nature while the other chose her targets deliberately. That night, as I tucked Lily into bed, she asked me a question that made my heart ache. "Dad, are we in trouble because of my wheelchair?" I kissed her forehead and shook my head firmly. "Never. Your wheelchair helps you explore and be independent. Anyone who has a problem with that has a problem with their own heart, not with you." But as I sat alone on our deck later that night, watching the river's current catching moonlight, I sensed that these violation notices were merely ripples before a storm. The water had taught me many lessons over the years, but perhaps the most important was recognizing danger before it struck. Something in my gut told me that Karen was just getting started, and our peaceful life at Riverside Oaks was about to face turbulent waters. Summer arrived with brutal heat and escalating conflicts. Karen transformed the HOA from a background community organization into what felt like a surveillance state. New rules appeared weekly, each one seemingly crafted to target specific homeowners who had crossed her. My family appeared to be at the top of her list. The morning of the July HOA meeting, I found another notice taped to my front door. This one demanded the immediate removal of the accessibility ramp I had built from our back deck to the garden. According to the notice, it violated the aesthetic harmony of the waterfront properties. I crumpled the paper in my fist and took several deep breaths, counting to 10 as I had taught countless panicking swimmers to do. "Is that another letter from the mean lady?" Lily asked from behind me. She had wheeled herself to the doorway, still in her pajamas, her thin arms working hard to maneuver her chair. I smoothed my expression before turning to her. "Just some grown-up nonsense. How about pancakes for breakfast?" But Lily was too perceptive. During breakfast, she pushed her blueberries around her plate and finally looked up at me. "Tommy at school says his mom says we might have to move because our house breaks the rules." The pancakes turned to ash in my mouth. Word was spreading through the community, and now it was affecting Lily at school. That evening, I attended the HOA meeting with a folder of documentation, medical necessity letters, previous board approvals, and even ADA guidelines supporting our modifications. The community center buzzed with unusually high attendance. I nodded to several neighbors as I took a seat. Some returned warm smiles, others averted their eyes uncomfortably. Karen sat at the center of the board table, her posture impeccable, a stack of papers arranged precisely before her. When the floor opened for resident concerns, I raised my hand immediately. Karen acknowledged me with a tight smile that never reached her eyes. "I would like to discuss the recent violation notices regarding disability accommodations," I began, opening my folder. "Under both HOA bylaws and federal law. We are not discussing individual violations at open meetings," Karen interrupted, her voice crisp. "Those must be addressed through the proper channels. Next concern, please." "This affects more than just my family," I persisted. "It concerns the rights of all residents with disabilities." Karen picked up her gavel. "As I stated, individual violations are not open for discussion. If you continue to disrupt this meeting, you will be asked to leave." Several neighbors shifted uncomfortably. From the back, an elderly man called out, "Let him speak, Patricia. The man has rights." Karen's knuckles whitened around the gavel. "This meeting will follow proper procedure. Next concern, please." As the meeting continued, I felt a tap on my shoulder. Martha Gaines, a retired teacher who lived 3 doors down, slipped into the seat beside me. "Meet me at the coffee shop tomorrow morning," she whispered. "Bring your documentation. There is more going on here than you know." The following morning, Martha slid a folder across the table to me. Inside were printouts of emails between Karen and Riverside Development Corporation, a luxury property developer known for purchasing waterfront properties and converting them to high-end condominiums. "She has been on their payroll as a community consultant for months," Martha explained quietly. "They need a contiguous stretch of riverfront properties. Yours is right in the middle of their target area." I stared at the documents in disbelief. "So the violations, the targeting, are meant to make you sell," Martha finished. "She has done this before in her previous neighborhood. Those who do not sell quickly face escalating fines until they cannot afford to stay. As I walked home along the river path, everything came into sharper focus. The water that had once seemed so peaceful now reflected Corinne's true intentions: cold, calculating, and relentless. My property was not just my home. It was a crucial piece in someone else's puzzle. The modifications for Lily were not merely violations of arbitrary rules. They were obstacles to a profitable development deal. That evening, as Lily and I sat on our deck watching the sunset paint the river orange and gold, I made a silent promise. This house, this safe haven we had created, would not be taken from us. Not by Corinne, not by developers, not by anyone who valued profit over people. The battle lines were drawn, and I would need all my training and patience to navigate these dangerous waters. My dining room transformed into command central over the following weeks. Legal pads filled with detailed notes of every interaction with Corinne and the HOA. Printed copies of disability rights laws and housing regulations covered one wall. A calendar tracked the escalating pattern of violations and fines. I had spent years ensuring swimming areas were safe. Now I was fighting to keep our home safe from a different kind of predator. I contacted a disability rights attorney who confirmed what I suspected. The HOA was overstepping its authority and potentially violating federal law. Document everything, she advised. Take photographs, record interactions when legal, get statements from neighbors, build your case methodically. Despite my efforts to shield Lily from the worst of it, she absorbed the tension like a sponge. Her nightmares returned, the ones she had after losing her biological parents. She would wake crying, convinced we would lose our home. During the day, she grew quieter, spending less time on the deck watching her beloved river. The garden that had once been her joy went untended. "Why does she hate us, Dad?" Lily asked one afternoon as we spotted Corinne photographing our property from the street. "Is it because of my chair?" I knelt beside her wheelchair, taking her small hands in mine. "Some people are afraid of differences. Others just want power, but neither is a reflection on you." The fines began arriving weekly. $150 for improper garden edging, $200 for unapproved window treatments, $300 for excessive water usage in maintaining Lily's accessible garden. I paid them all, keeping meticulous records while our savings slowly dwindled. A small group of neighbors began to rally around us. Martha brought casseroles and moral support. Mr. Jenkins, a retired lawyer, offered to review my documentation. The Thompsons next door installed a "Everyone Belongs Here" sign prominently in their front yard and received their first violation notice the very next day. During an unusually hot August afternoon, Corinne herself arrived with another board member to inspect our unauthorized irrigation system in the backyard. Lily was sitting on the deck, drawing in her sketchbook, while I showed the board member the standard sprinkler system that had been installed by the previous owner. Corinne wandered over to where Lily sat. "Your father needs to understand that rules apply to everyone," she said, her voice falsely sweet. "Special treatment is not fair to other residents who follow the rules." Before I could intervene, Lily's body stiffened. Her eyes rolled back, and her sketchbook clattered to the deck. I recognized the signs immediately: a seizure, a complication of her condition that had been well controlled with medication for years. I rushed to her side, easing her from the wheelchair to the deck floor, turning her onto her side and cushioning her head as her small body convulsed. "Call 911, I ordered sharply. The board member immediately pulled out his phone. Corinne stood frozen, her clipboard clutched to her chest, eyes wide with shock at the reality of Lily's condition. The ambulance arrived within minutes. As the paramedics stabilized Lily, neighbors gathered at our driveway. Martha pushed through the crowd, her face pale with concern. "I will follow you to the hospital," she assured me. Karen remained at the edge of the property, watching as they loaded Lily into the ambulance. For a brief moment, I thought I saw genuine concern cross her face, a flicker of humanity breaking through her carefully constructed facade. At the hospital, the doctor explained that stress could have triggered the seizure. "Her condition makes her more vulnerable to environmental factors," he explained gently. "Reducing stress is medically necessary for her well-being." For 3 days, neighbors visited with flowers, cards, and home-cooked meals. Even some board members sent well wishes. Karen remained conspicuously absent. The day we returned home, I found our property untouched by new violations. For a full week, silence from the HOA gave me hope that perhaps Lily's medical emergency had provided perspective. Perhaps now Karen understood the real-world impact of her campaign against us. That hope shattered when I collected our mail after Lily's first day back at school. Inside the HOA envelope was not just a new violation notice, but an intent to lien our property for unpaid fines. Fines that included the week Lily was hospitalized. The paper trembled in my hand, not from fear but from a cold, crystallizing anger I had rarely experienced. As a lifeguard, I had been trained to remain calm in any emergency, to think clearly when others panicked. But this calculated cruelty tested the limits of that training. Water can sustain life or destroy it. I had taught this fundamental truth to countless swimming students over the years. What Karen failed to understand was that people, too, can be pushed to their limits. And like water, they could become a force that could not be contained by clipboards and regulations. That evening, as Lily slept upstairs, I sat on our deck watching the river. The crocodiles slid silently through the dark water, patient predators waiting for the right moment to strike. In that moment, I understood that this was no longer about property violations or HOA overreach. This was about protecting what mattered most. And like the river itself, I would appear calm on the surface while gathering all my strength for what lay ahead. Lily turned 9 years old on a perfect October day. The summer heat had finally broken, leaving behind crisp air and golden sunlight that danced across the river. Despite everything we had endured, I was determined to make this day special for her. We had a tradition of birthday picnics at her favorite spot, a small clearing near the river with a specially constructed observation platform I had built where she could safely watch the water and wildlife. "Can we still have our river picnic?" she asked tentatively over breakfast. The hope in her voice broke my heart. She had stopped asking for things in recent months, becoming cautious and withdrawn. "Of course we can," I assured her, packing her favorite sandwiches and the chocolate cupcakes Martha had baked for the occasion. "It is your birthday. Nothing will interfere with our tradition." I had chosen a time when most neighbors would be at work, hopping to avoid any confrontations. The accessible path to the viewing area wound through community property before reaching the riverbank. Technically, we needed no special permission to use it. It was designated as common area in the HOA documents. Lily beamed as I helped her into her special outdoor wheelchair, the one with reinforced wheels designed for uneven terrain. A gift from the local adaptive sports program, it represented freedom for her. It allowed her to navigate places ordinary wheelchairs could not go. "Do you think we will see the turtles today?" she asked as we made our way down the path. "Or maybe an egret? I have been practicing my bird identification." "I would not be surprised if they all came out to wish you happy birthday," I replied, pushing her chair along the smooth path. For the first time in months, I saw genuine excitement light up her face. The viewing platform stood exactly as we had left it, a simple wooden structure with raised edges for safety and a wide, smooth ramp. We settled in, spreading our picnic blanket and unpacking lunch. Lily leaned forward in her chair, pointing out a turtle sunning itself on a half-submerged log. "Dad, look, that is the big one with the notch in his shell. I have not seen him since spring." Her joy was contagious. For a precious hour, we forgot about violation notices and property disputes. Lily spotted 3 different bird species and carefully recorded them in her nature journal. When she laughed at a dragonfly that landed briefly on her wheelchair handle, the sound was like music after months of silence. The shadow fell across our blanket without warning. I looked up to see Karen standing at the edge of the platform, clipboard in hand as always. "This area is not designated for private gatherings," she announced, her voice cutting through our peaceful moment. "The viewing platform is for observation only, not picnicking." I took a deep breath, conscious of Lily shrinking back in her chair. "We are simply celebrating my daughter's birthday. There are no rules against having lunch here." Karen's lips thinned into a tight line. "Rules exist for everyone's safety. Food attracts wildlife, including the crocodiles. Additionally, that non-standard wheelchair is not approved for community pathways. It could damage the surface." Lily's eyes filled with tears. The wheelchair she had been so proud of, her ticket to independence, was now being used against her. I stood slowly, placing myself between Karen and my daughter. "That is enough," I said quietly. "This is my daughter's birthday. We will pack up shortly, but I am asking you, as a human being, to please leave us to enjoy the remainder of our celebration." Something dangerous flashed in Karen's eyes: frustration at being challenged, anger at not getting immediate compliance. "As HOA president, I have the authority to enforce rules on all community property. And as a father, I have the right to protect my child from harassment," I countered. Her face flushed red. "Harassment? I am merely enforcing the rules that everyone agreed to when purchasing property here. Your constant demands for special treatment are what is harassing our community." "Special treatment," I echoed in disbelief. "Basic accessibility is not special treatment. It is a legal right." Karen stepped forward, her finger jabbing toward my chest. "Your attitude is precisely the problem. You think the rules do not apply to you. You think your situation entitles you to exceptions that devalue our community standards." What happened next occurred so quickly I barely had time to react. Karen moved toward Lily, gesturing emphatically about the wheelchair. Her clipboard struck the joystick controller on Lily's specialized chair. Whether intentional or accidental, the result was the same. The chair jerked sideways, tipping precariously near the edge of the platform. Lily cried out in fear, grasping the armrests. I lunged forward, stabilizing the chair before it could tip further. The picnic basket tumbled over the edge, splashing into the shallow water below. A rustle of movement in the reeds suggested we had indeed attracted unwanted attention from the river's inhabitants. "Do you see what you have done?" Karen hissed, stepping back. "This is exactly why we have rules." Lily was trembling, tears streaming down her face. The joy of the day completely shattered. As I comforted my daughter, something cold and resolute settled in my chest. This had gone beyond property disputes or petty power plays. Karen's actions had put my child in physical danger. That evening, after putting Lily to bed with reassurances and extra nightlight, I drove to the police station. The officer listened patiently as I filed a report documenting the incident. While he admitted there was little they could do without clear evidence of intent, the report would establish a pattern if further incidents occurred. Next, I emailed the entire HOA board with a formal complaint, attaching photographs of the damaged wheelchair controller and the incident report number. Finally, I contacted my disability rights attorney to discuss a cease and desist order. As I sat at my computer late into the night, I recognized the look I had seen in Corinne's eyes by the river. It was the same desperate, wild look I had witnessed in drowning victims, the panic that makes them fight against their rescuers, sometimes pulling them both under in their frenzy. Corinne was drowning in her own power struggle, lashing out as she lost control of the situation and the support of the community. And like any trained lifeguard, I knew the most dangerous moment in any water rescue is not the initial emergency, but the desperate struggle that follows. Corinne was becoming unpredictable, and that made her more dangerous than ever before. The letter from the HOA board arrived exactly 3 weeks after the birthday incident. The heavy cream-colored envelope bore the official Riverside Oaks letterhead, and my hands shook slightly as I opened it at the kitchen table. Inside was a formal notice that the board had voted 4-2 to grant our request for reasonable accommodation regarding the accessibility modifications to our property. All existing violations related to disability access were rescinded, and future modifications would be reviewed under ADA guidelines rather than aesthetic standards. This should have felt like victory. Instead, an uncomfortable weight settled in my stomach. The letter was signed by the board secretary, not by Corinne. Her absence from this official reversal felt ominous rather than reassuring. In the days that followed, Corinne became a ghost in our community. She no longer approached me directly with violations. Instead, other board members delivered notices. Neighbors reported seeing her watching our house from her car. Twice, I spotted her photographing our property from across the street, ducking away when I noticed her. "Dad, she is staring at me again," Lily whispered one afternoon as we returned from her physical therapy appointment. Corinne stood at her mailbox, her gaze fixed on us with an intensity that made the hair on my neck stand up. Lily's therapist had suggested that returning to the Riverside observation deck might help her overcome the anxiety triggered by the birthday incident. Reclaiming spaces associated with trauma can be healing, she explained. With your supervision, it could help her feel safe again. The following Saturday morning was clear and cool, perfect for our therapeutic outing. Lily was quiet as I helped her into her repaired adaptive wheelchair. "We do not have to do this if you are not ready," I assured her. She squared her thin shoulders. "I want to see my turtles again," she said with quiet determination. "I will not let her take that away from me." We arrived at the observation deck to find it empty. Relief washed over me as I helped Lily navigate onto the platform. Her therapist had provided exercises for us to try, deep breathing techniques when anxiety surfaced, positive associations to replace negative memories. For nearly an hour, we practiced these strategies while watching a great blue heron fish in the shallows. Gradually, I saw Lily relax. Her shoulders lowered, her breathing slowed, and she even smiled when a pair of turtles surfaced near the platform. "They remembered me," she whispered, her voice tinged with wonder. The crunch of footsteps on the gravel path behind us shattered our peaceful moment. I turned to see Corinne marching toward us, her face contorted with rage unlike anything I had witnessed before. This was not her usual controlled displeasure but something wilder, more dangerous. "You think you have won, do not you?" she seethed, storming onto the platform. "Getting the board to overrule me, turning the neighborhood against me, filing police reports." I rose slowly, positioning myself between her and Lily. This is not about winning. This is about my daughter's rights. Rights? She spat the word. What about my rights? My property value is tanking because of your constant modifications. The development deal is falling apart because you will not sell. Do you have any idea how much money you have cost me? In her anger, she had revealed what Martha had warned me about, the development deal, her personal stake in it. Her face paled as she realized her error. You need to leave, I said firmly. You are frightening my daughter. Corinne's eyes darted to Lily, who had wheeled herself backward toward the safety railing. Something in Corinne seemed to snap at the sight. Always hiding behind your daughter, using her disability as a shield, the perfect victim family that nobody can criticize. She advanced toward us, her voice rising. That developer offered me a six-figure commission if all riverfront properties sold. 6 figures. And you and your ramps and your special needs and your constant complaints, you ruined everything. What happened next seemed to unfold in terrible slow motion. Corinne lunged forward, not toward me but toward Lily. Whether she intended to grab the wheelchair handles or merely gesture emphatically, I will never know. Her hand struck the side of the chair with enough force to break the wheel lock. The wheelchair tipped backward against the safety railing. The railing, designed to prevent accidental falls, was not built to withstand the direct force of a wheelchair pushed against it. With a splintering crack, it gave way. Lily screamed as the wheelchair tipped over the edge. Her small body began sliding down the embankment toward the water, toward the dark shapes that had begun to stir at the commotion above. Lily, my scream tore from my throat as 20 years of lifeguard training crystallized into pure instinct. Corinne stood frozen in horror, her hands over her mouth as she realized what she had done. But I was already moving, calculating angles and trajectories as I had done countless times during water rescues. I dove over the broken railing, pushing off at an angle that would intercept Lily's path down the steep bank. My hand caught her arm just as her wheelchair splashed into the shallow water at the edge. With my free hand, I grabbed a root protruding from the embankment, halting our descent mere feet from the water's edge. Below us, the water churned with movement. The splash had attracted attention from the river's predators. A scaled back broke the surface, reptilian eyes fixing on the disturbance. Hold on to me, I instructed Lily, my voice professionally calm despite the hammering of my heart. Arms around my neck, do not let go. With practiced movements, I secured her against my chest with one arm while using my free hand and feet to find purchase on the slippery bank. Years of water rescue training had prepared me for far more challenging extractions, but never with my own child as the victim. Above us, Corinne remained paralyzed with shock. From further down the path came shouts, neighbors running toward the commotion, cell phones already out and recording. Inch by inch, I navigated the muddy slope, keeping Lily tight against me while maintaining constant awareness of the crocodiles investigating the partially submerged wheelchair. The distance was short, perhaps 15 feet, but with predators below and unstable ground under us, it felt like miles. "Dad," Lily whispered against my neck, her voice surprisingly steady. "The big one is coming." I did not need to look to know she meant the largest crocodile, the dominant male we had observed many times from the safety of the platform. Now there was nothing between us but open water and a steep bank. "Eyes on me," I told her, using the same calm voice I had used with countless panicking swimmers. "We are almost there. Help is coming." As we neared the top of the embankment, hands reached down, neighbors forming a human chain to pull us to safety. The moment we cleared the edge, A massive tail slapped the water where we had been seconds before. Lily clung to me, soaked and trembling but unharmed. Around us, the crowd of neighbors had grown, many with phones recording everything. Through their midst, I saw Corinne standing alone, her face a mask of horror not at what almost happened to my daughter, but at the dozen witnesses surrounding her, their cameras capturing the aftermath of her actions. Water has its own logic, its own memory. Every water rescue follows certain immutable principles. Secure the victim, maintain your own safety, move deliberately. These lessons, drilled into me through thousands of hours of training, saved both Lily and me in those crucial moments on the riverbank. As neighbors helped us to solid ground, the full reality of what had just occurred washed over me. Lily's wheelchair floated partly submerged, already being investigated by curious reptilian snouts. My daughter trembled against my chest, her clothes soaked and muddy, but miraculously uninjured. "Someone call an ambulance," Martha shouted, wrapping her cardigan around Lily's shoulders. Mr. Jenkins had his phone out, recording everything. "I got it all," he said grimly, "from the moment she started yelling at them." Through the gathering crowd, I spotted Corinne standing frozen, her face drained of color. The mask of authority had crumbled completely, replaced by the naked realization of consequences. As our eyes met across the distance, I saw something I had never expected: fear. More neighbors arrived, forming a protective circle around Lily and me. Someone brought blankets from a nearby house. Another neighbor, a nurse, began checking Lily for injuries. The community that had once seemed divided by Corinne's influence now united in purpose. "The crocodiles are moving closer to the wheelchair," someone called out. "Should we try to retrieve it?" "Leave it," I instructed firmly. "Property can be replaced. No one approach the water." The wail of sirens cut through the commotion. Within minutes, paramedics arrived, carefully transferring Lily to a stretcher despite her insistence that she could sit up. "Protocol, sweetheart," the female paramedic explained kindly. "We need to make sure everything is exactly as it should be." As they loaded Lily into the ambulance, I heard raised voices behind me. Corinne had apparently recovered from her shock and was now speaking rapidly to a police officer who had arrived with the paramedics. "It was an accident," she insisted, her voice carrying across the gathered crowd. "The child wheeled too close to the railing. I was trying to prevent her from falling." A chorus of contradicting voices rose immediately. "That is not what happened," Martha called out. "She pushed the wheelchair." "I have it all on video," Mr. Jenkins added, approaching the officer with his phone extended. The officer viewed the footage, his expression darkening. He turned to Corinne, his posture shifting subtly into the stance of an official confrontation. "Ma'am, I need you to remain here while we sort this out." I climbed into the ambulance beside Lily, holding her small hand as the doors closed. "Dad," she whispered, "is Corinne going to jail?" "I do not know, sweetheart," I answered honestly. "Right now, all that matters is making sure you are okay." At the hospital, doctors confirmed what I had hoped. Lily had suffered no physical injuries beyond minor scrapes and bruises. The psychological impact, however, would take longer to assess. A child psychologist visited our examination room, gently asking Lily about what happened and her feelings about it. Outside in the hallway, the police officer who had been at the scene updated me on the situation. "We have multiple witnesses and video evidence," he explained. "Ms. Westfield is currently being questioned. Based on what we have seen, there will likely be charges for reckless endangerment at minimum." I nodded, exhaustion finally catching up with me now that the adrenaline had subsided. What happens next? We will need formal statements from both you and your daughter when she is ready. Child Services will also want to ensure she has proper support after a traumatic event." He paused, looking uncomfortable. "The video is quite clear. Ms. Westfield's initial claims that it was an accident do not match what witnesses recorded." When we returned home that evening, our driveway was lined with neighbors' cars. Martha had organized a meal train. The Thompsons had retrieved Lily's backup wheelchair from our garage and set it up in the living room. Mr. Jenkins and several other neighbors had formed an impromptu security watch to ensure Corinne did not return to our property if she was released. Through the living room window, I could see the river gleaming in the evening light. The water that had nearly claimed my daughter now looked peaceful again, its dangers hidden beneath the reflective surface. Like the river, Corinne had concealed her true nature beneath a calm exterior, until the pressure became too great and her destructive potential was revealed. As I tucked Lily into bed that night, she asked a question that caught me off guard. "Dad, do you think Corinne is sorry for what she did?" I considered my answer carefully. I think she is sorry about the consequences. Whether she is sorry about the actions that led to them, that is harder to know. Lily nodded thoughtfully. "The river is not sorry when it floods or when the crocodiles hunt. It is just doing what rivers do." Out of the mouths of children comes wisdom that adults often miss. Corinne, like the river, had simply revealed her true nature when the pressure rose high enough. And like any dangerous natural force, the only real protection was establishing proper boundaries and respect. The county courthouse stood imposing against the autumn sky, its brick facade and formal columns a stark contrast to the natural flow of the river I could glimpse in the distance. Inside, the atmosphere felt equally rigid. Polished wood, ceremonial procedures, and strict decorum, all designed to channel human conflict into ordered resolution. 3 months had passed since the incident at the observation deck. Today marked the conclusion of Corinne's legal proceedings. She sat at the defendant's table, dressed in a conservative blue suit that could not mask how much she had changed. The imperious HOA president had been replaced by a diminished figure whose shoulders hunched slightly forward.